How are you feeling? Like, is this a moment in history for you?
Well, not for me personally. Didn't get an invite, so no, not really. Look, it is, obviously, there are very few people alive today who would have witnessed the last coronation, 1953. There'll be some, but not that many. For most of us, this is the first time you'll have witnessed what is a historically significant ceremony. Someone asked me to describe it, and I said, look, it's going to be smaller than the Queen's coronation, but that doesn't mean it's going to be small. And it's going to be more modern than the Queen's coronation, but that doesn't mean it's going to be modern.
Very well put, yes.
In terms of, what are attitudes in Britain to the king, I mentioned he'd had 50 years of adult life before becoming king, and over that time he's had a long time to develop this reputation among the public, and it is a kind of reputation for, interfering, butting into debates about architecture, sending countless letters to government ministers over decades about all sorts of issues of policy. There are accusations that, let's say, he somewhat enjoys the privileges of being a member of the royal family. There aren't many of us who get our shoelaces ironed in the morning.
No, that's not true.
Well, I don't know if that's true. It's one of those kind of, the story is that his shoelaces are ironed for him. I've never been able to find anyone who's willing to do that for me. The public took a pretty poor view of the then Prince Charles in the 90s, when his marriage was collapsing, the issues of the relationship with Camilla, and his reputation was pretty low then. And it was a long, difficult path to rehabilitate his image, to get the public to warm to the idea of Camilla initially as his wife. They do these surveys where they say to people, I'm going to reel off a list now of members of the royal family, and you tell me if you like them or don't like them. And they work out those, politicians have those net favourability scores.
Yes.
This many people like you, this many don't. Your score is like +6 or something. So the most popular royal, according to a survey done about 2-3 months ago in the UK, is Anne, Princess Royal. She has a net rating of +50. Then it's Prince William, who's now Prince of Wales, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, are the next most popular. Then the King. His net score is +28, so more people like him than don't like him. Camilla is lower down, and it's a little bit more dicey. Her rating is +8. It's a bit more mixed, who likes and doesn't like. And then you get down the other end. Prince Harry, -30. Meghan, -36. This is, in sporting terms, we're very much at the bottom of the table now.
Who is at the bottom?
Guess. Andrew. For obvious reasons we won't go into. -63, not at all popular. So the king sits somewhere in the middle. And you could argue there's a sense in which the jury is kind of still out a little bit. It's very, very early. We haven't really seen him do very much as king. So the jury's out.
There's 5 stages in the ceremony. What are they?
The first main stage is called recognition, which is literally as he comes in, he turns to face all 4 sides of the church and is effectively accepted, acknowledged as the rightful king. Then there is the oath, which is where he says that he will maintain the Anglican religion. He's the head of the Church of England. He will respect laws passed by Parliament. Then you get to the anointing, which is the religious centre of the ceremony. That literally is where he is anointed with holy oil from an eagle that holds the oil, and you take its head off and pour it into a spoon from the 12th century.
Right.
Then there is the actual investiture and the crowning, where they give him all the various bits of regalia. If you've been to the Tower of London, seen the crown jewels, this is the orb and the sceptre and all of this. And he has 3 swords. There's the sword of mercy, the sword of spiritual justice, and the sword of temporal justice, which are presented to him. Then he gets 2 sceptres, which he holds, 1 in each hand. Then he's also given an orb as well. And then there's a staff called the St. Edward's staff. It dates back to the 1660s. Nobody knows what it's for. He'll be given all of these things, and then the crown. He actually is crowned with the St. Edward's crown. It's solid gold, weighs more than 2 kilograms, and it is the only time he will ever wear it.
One time, Saturday night.
That's it. The only time he will ever wear it. And he will leave in the imperial state crown, which is the one you're probably used to seeing. That's the one that the Queen used to wear for the opening of Parliament, big state occasions.
Bit of purple, couple of diamonds.
Yeah, it's kind of the working crown.
You're right.
I love the idea that he's got a working crown and a fancy crown, but he's got a working crown and a fancy crown.
There will be people who are rolling their eyes at the obscenity of that accumulation of wealth, and others who see this as rightfully tradition and heritage being upheld.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because on the one hand, I'm probably going to be banned from coming back if I say this, Britain is kind of like a historical theme park.
Right.
This is what appeals to a lot of people when they're considering coming to Britain, is the pageantry and the history and all of that. And people sort of expect that. If you completely modernised it and you turned up in a lounge suit and with a piece of paper and signed a piece of paper and went off for lunch or something, that was not what people expect.
Yeah, and to be fair, in terms of an economic contribution via tourism and events and whatnot, that is significant in the British economy, right?
It is, but at the same time, Britain, like many other countries, is in the middle of a cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
You know, people are struggling to pay their heating bills. They're struggling to pay for food. They are massively worse off than they were. Inflation is high and interest rates are high, just like here. And there are plenty of people who would say, well, why are we spending hundreds of millions of pounds on this ceremony when there are millions of people who cannot afford, to pay their bills? There are stories about some prominent Republican campaigners getting letters from the UK Home Office warning them if they break public order laws, they could be arrested. And that in itself is controversial because we had this around the time of the Queen's death. You might remember the various events that were happening around the King's proclamation, that people were being detained for holding up signs that said, you're not my king or something. It is not the role of the police to enforce people's mood. It is not the role of the police to say to people, everyone must be happy. People who are not happy must be taken away and isolated. That does happen in some countries. It tends not to happen in Britain. And what was interesting is that even among the people who are pretty much pro-monarchy, there was very little time for that, for the police coming along saying, well, you're not allowed to protest. You are allowed to protest. You are allowed to object. That is the point of living in a democracy. And indeed, that is the democracy that the monarchy is supposed to uphold. It includes the right of people to say that they shouldn't be there.
Will you be watching, Paul Osborne?
Yeah, of course I will. Of course I will. What else are you going to do on a Saturday night? Of course I'm going to. I hear there's a sporting event, but, I'm of the opinion that this is more important. What we have done is discuss the food arrangement, because I looked at the coronation quiche.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not excited by a broad bean and spinach. I'm not excited by a quiche generally. I think if anybody who sees a quiche and gets excited is probably a slightly odd person. But I've seen the coronation quiche. I won't be partaking. But we are reviving, in 1950 style, sort of reviving the coronation chicken. Coronation chicken, for those who don't know, was they always have to come up with a recipe to go with the coronation. So 1953, austerity, much like today, not a lot of money about, much like today, and rationing, post-war rationing in the UK. So they came up with this pretty easy recipe: get some chicken, shred it, mix it in with a bit of curry sauce, curry mayonnaise, a few sultanas, stick it on a sandwich. And here we are again, 2023, not much money around, bit of austerity, and what are we having? I don't mean to be rude, I'm sure some people love it, but a broad bean and spinach quiche, to me, does not express the grandeur of the royal family.
Especially at a time when there's an egg shortage in the UK.
Well, exactly.
Paul, this has been such a great conversation. I think there's an opportunity for plenty of productive conversations in the wake of the coronation, regardless of where you sit on the royal spectrum. Thank you so much.
Thanks.